Yes, hello, folks. Welcome to the weekly Manchester United podcast. I'm your host, as always, Phil Branch. I'm with my regular co-host, the excellent James Rhodes, on this Tuesday after we had a long Labour Day weekend. It was a long weekend for sure. Um, how was yours, mate?
It was all right. It was okay. Had a lot of family stuff to do after and before the game, so not a lot of time to sit and stew too much, which I think was a good thing. But yeah, so good otherwise to keep distracted, but pretty painful from a United standpoint.
Yeah. you know, my kid, I totally forgot. My kid, my middle son had a sleepover on Saturday, and
Hmm.
poor kid the next morning got exposed to a few expletives, shall I say.
There you
About
go.
45 minutes later, yeah, I'm on my way to pick him up. I'll be right there. I'm like, oh, shit, sorry. It, rough weekend for sure.
Yep.
Um, and lot to talk about. I'm not going to turn this podcast into a 1 hour negativity podcast of tearing Ten Hag apart. People are all across the map on that. Lay out some things that have concerned me, that concerned me about the weekend, and I say this as someone who has more or less defended him and agreed that he should have got a third season, and I give my views on what concerned me. Unless, as I've said many times, there are lots of reasons to um, give in some level of mitigation for Ten Hag, given the absolute insanity. I was looking at, James, the things that have gone on during his tenure in the 2 years that he's been here, and truly unbelievable. Just give me a second on this. His first season, he comes in after Ranić done the whole, open heart surgery thing. And one of the parts of that quote that often gets missed is that he was talking in reference to Liverpool when they hired Jurgen Klopp. And they
Hmm.
had a very clear, definitive style in how they wanted to play and proceeded to build around that and have continuity and continue with that process unabated and completely have a complete consensus agreement on what to do from the owners all the way down and saw it through the and to, Ranić was saying you need to decide how you want to play and then you need to build a team around that. First year he comes in, he gets a £12 million left back, which is not beyond the financial reach of anyone in the Premier League. He gets a £55 million centre back, which is its best centre backs at Ferdinand and Vidic, and a guy on a free transfer who just months before weren't sure if he was ever going to be on a football pitch again. They then panic at Casemiro and Anthony. He goes into that January, James, his first season, 4 points behind City, and not allowed to spend. In fact, he was the only manager that was able to qualify for the Champions League that year. He didn't get to spend in January. I know we got a couple of loans. Had to deal with the Ronaldo situation. Had to deal with the Mason Greenwood situation. Had to deal with Sancho getting suspended. Had to deal with Anthony getting suspended. I had to deal with the club going through a takeover, the CEO getting fired, the CFO getting fired, the director of football getting fired, a medical department that's got it to the core. Um, and another window last summer that was a mess because they told them that you should recruit based on the premise of Mason Greenwood's going to come back, and then they changed that, and just calamity after calamity after calamity in an impossible football club. All that being said, goes back to something that we were saying a couple of months ago. The question isn't, is Ten Hag responsible for everything that's gone before? Maybe he's responsible for none of it, and it was impossible football clubs to manage, and no one could be successful in that environment. The question is he the right guy going forward?
Yeah, and that is the question, and I think clearly, that is the question that the new owners, the new management, and all of that are putting to the task as well. Because if you take the comments that they made, which were before the Liverpool game, that were published last night about everything. Now, first and foremost, this was not supposed to be actually an interview about whether they rate Ten Hag or not. This was intended to be a public interview with these journalists from the new Manchester United sporting director and CEO, their first one after the window had shut. That was why it was timed for that day, that morning. Of course, the questions became already, which probably tells you part of the concerns going on and why it continues to be a subject. The questions became almost entirely about Ten Hag. Now, they distanced themselves pretty hard from being responsible for the decision to retain Ten Hag, but also express their support for him. At the same time, they've also made it very clear they've done everything. They've put it all in place. They've built a team they're happy with. They've built a squad they're happy with. They've built a staff that they're happy with. They've done all of that. And so for everybody, the question is now, are there really any more excuses to produce the kind of results we saw last season? And the problem, of course, that we're all looking at today is following the first 3 weeks of the year, there's fuck all difference from last year to this season so far, despite all of that, despite, another game against Liverpool starting with 4 of his former players in the back line, 4 of them, plus Diogo Dalot, and conceding 3 goals. Same problems as usual. And that is going to, of course, is at the basis of the concern for everybody is this actually going to change? Is this actually going to get better? Is all the work that's being done going to do anything? Or is it just going to be, more of the same? Because as you said, there's all these things that have happened, and whether Ten Hag is responsible for any of them, whether they're his fault or not, doesn't particularly matter. Having changed managers many times and it not works out doesn't mean that the manager you have now is the right person. That
Well,
would
let me
be
ask
the
you a
same
question.
kind of bias. Yeah.
Because I was thinking about this quite a bit over the weekend. Let's say Arne Slot had have taken over United this summer and Ten Hag had been managing Liverpool at the weekend. Do you think that game would have played out the same if Slot was managing United and Ten Hag was managing Liverpool? I don't think it would have, personally.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I don't think it would be the same. I think it would look quite
Liverpool might still
different.
won it, but not the way they did.
Yeah, I don't think it would have been the same. I mean, there's definitely a difference in ideas. We unfortunately spoke about Arne Slot last week and his comments. And once again, after the game, he made some comments that were pretty damning of just from a purely technical coaching manner. And it's easy to do that when you're winning and to have those things look very smart, of course. But
well,
it's
it is when you win that convincingly, because clearly
it's
the result of individual errors.
Correct. Yeah, it is. And they're still, I think, the only team they've they've got 2 clean sheets at the top of the league, 2 or 3, I don't even remember actually, but they're top of the league and doing quite well. Yeah, so you get those kind of excuses when you could do that, and people will listen to you when you talk, when you're like that. And I think, though, at the same time, what's sort of frustrating, where I would say, yeah, it would be a bit different, is one of the major concerns over Ten Hag in general, which I think expressed itself, unfortunately, quite poorly in his press conference on this, was the difference in the level of communication between Ten Hag and a guy like Arne Slot or other managers. Because one of the concerns has been, is he getting his ideas across to the players themselves? You can have the best ideas in the world, but you've got to get through to people. And it's hard in a sense to critique on this. It really is. But I thought it was almost worse than the game, the comments that came afterwards from Ten Hag about it, because you can't keep, coming across like Mike Lugg on Twitter about trophies when someone's asking you about how you're playing, how you're performing.
I'm glad I hadn't.
I know, but you can't just keep saying trophies over and over when someone is trying to ask you these questions. I understand that I didn't think the media were being particularly unfair with the questions about him at all. But there seems to be an incapability of responding to it. And it's frustrating because it's like, I don't know if he recognizes the problems that are going on. I don't actually know. It's hard to tell. Does Ten Hag see what's actually wrong? Because if not, then there's no way he's ever going to fix it.
I mean, I think that he sees what's wrong, but seeing what's wrong and knowing how to fix it are two very different things.
Sure, there's two steps. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, any idiot can look at something and say this is broken, but how you fix it,
Are you calling me an idiot? No, I'm just kidding.
no, but me, trust me, I can look at a light bulb and say it's broken. I'm not fixing it, no, yeah, I mean, I can call someone and say this is broken. I mean, seriously, this is actually the diagnostics of a problem isn't as simple as people think.
Yeah, sure.
This is one of the things that I would say often about Woodward and stuff when they were sacking managers is you have to know why you failed.
Correct. Yes.
And I think when I heard Barada's comments yesterday, obviously he wasn't there when the cup final was played, where United didn't feel compelled to say anything in support of Ten Hag. I understand why Barada did it yesterday. Because look, it's 3 games in, and it would have looked if I mean I said this that before the game. Even if United lose, I don't think they'll sack him this soon. But
yeah, me neither.
I think he's on very, very thin ice. Here's the problem, James. The good part is, and he should be thankful for this, he's being evaluated by football people.
Correct.
Football people and sports people who understand all the other, all the other influences that go into building a winning football club. All the other things that are very, very important that provide you with top performing athletes that are extremely relevant. They get that. So they understand that this is down to you, this is down to you, that's down to you. Here's my issue, right? Liverpool, watching them last season and stuff, they're going away to Luton, and they're getting a 98th minute winner from Luis Diaz, or equalizer, maybe I can't even remember. And I watched them against Ipswich, and I watched them against Brentford. And this is the easiest game they played in, I don't know, forever. Yeah. I mean, it reminded me a lot of the FA Cup first half last season, where they were completely dominant.
Yeah,
but they didn't take their chances.
Correct. Yep.
They got the second goal, which is key, because then you insulate yourself from a mistake, and Bruno Fernandes chips the keeper from 45 yards, brings the crowd back into it. United make the game frantic. They make it messy, and that's how they can win, because then the opposition can't execute properly their style. They're not comfortable, because you still have to always in a game with United Liverpool, when the crowd comes into it's different. This is why United never went away at top games, because against top teams, because they don't have the advantage of making it messy and bringing the crowd into it, making it an emotional game, not logical.
Yes. Yep.
So where there's control in the game. So they got away with it last season. But I'm sick and tired of watching these games where, how can you not put 11 players on a field where the gaps between you and the opposition are closer? I watch Liverpool in any away game in the Premier League this season. They will not have an easier game than that.
Yep.
I understand injuries last season. I get it. But that's not a team riddled with injuries. I understand there's some new players in there and you're bedding them in. Fine if you lose 3-2 or 2-1. But you were completely outclassed. Now, I accept the fact. United had some chances. Look at the City West Ham game the day before. 3 mistakes, Holland, boom, 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 go. Xerxes, who doesn't think like a striker because he doesn't attack the ball when he had to go forward, he drops deep. That's okay. That's the player he is. But 2 good chances, doesn't take either of them. I know United don't have that quality up front. They've created I think the most chances in the Premier League they haven't taken. But these are things your manager has to fix, James. Yeah. This has been a problem from the first season. Season, they had Rashford. They were told, you have to fix this problem. I accept he didn't get strikers. He got Højlund late, and Højlund comes in with a back injury, can't play for months, doesn't score for months, all this nonsense, right? We're now in our 3rd season. I don't want to hear my manager before Liverpool game say, we're a young team and we have to do it differently by bringing in young players. Liverpool are much more mature. This is David Moyes stuff. Like, that irritated me. and then his grumpiness over Regarte could take months. Mate, you don't have months.
Yeah.
Okay? You don't have months. You need to get that kid in that team fucking now.
Yeah.
And as for Casemiro, undoubtedly poor pass selection, James. But look, just by the way, there was something that was pointed out yesterday. I want to give Ian Joy huge credit for this. This is a bit nitpicky. But in both of the passes where that ball is given away, we need to turn it over. The first time Bruno Fernandes wants to play the ball out wide to Garnacho. And Anthony Taylor's standing right in his way. And he runs in the direction of the pass and goes like this. So Bruno has to stop, then plays back. Casemiro tries to play the ball out to the other way. I think he had another pass, one of many that he should have taken. But there aren't many pass selections. Also, United players are so far apart when they get the ball that you're always hitting 10, 15-yard dangerous passes. Liverpool players, close, boom, 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 boom.
Yep.
Right? Then the second pass. Anthony Taylor's there again. Fucking Casemiro. So then he has to stop, change, and then he gets caught. I'm going to send you the clip on this. I'll retweet it. A lot of people, I don't know if it'll show in other countries with CBS.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
It's great. Anyway, those are forced errors. Liverpool saturated United. They knew after that they'd go out wide, knock it long, becomes too predictable.
Yep. Well, and you know, I watched it, and they showed different angles in the US and things like that too. And I watched it, and initially, you know, undoubtedly, I'm looking at Casemiro and thinking, what are you doing with these passes? Like, you know, they're just, it's the worst place on the pitch to give it up is right in the center from your own half. It's the worst place to give the ball away. That being said, you watch it from the angle like they show from down on pitch level, and I swear to God, when our midfield gets the ball, it's like the entire team has like an opposite magnetic reaction from them. They just sprint away and just everybody just pours forward, far, far, far away, and there's nowhere to go. You look at where Kobe Mainu lost the ball.
Yeah.
There's 4 players around him, and in front of him, empty space for 50 yards practically. There's just nothing there. These gaps are incredible. And I've gone on and on about how, like, one of the things I find a little bit odd in the analysis of football is people will talk about like the in possession and out of possession as if they're two different things. As almost as if it's like American football, like how you play defense and how you play offense are different. But I don't think that's the case when you have constant transition and possession back and forth. United in possession make all their defensive problems for themselves. It's almost always caused, they're giving up goals when they're rushing it forward in attack and losing it in these huge spaces where they cannot retain the ball. They lose it. The other team goes back the other way and scores. Now there's set pieces as well, which is different, but it didn't show up against Liverpool, of course. That was against Brighton. But the vast majority of their goals, and look, this is true of most teams. Like you said, West Ham, Man City, they scored off of errors in possession from West Ham, multiple errors in possession from West Ham. But that's what teams do. When teams press you, when teams attack you, when teams are doing that, what are they trying to do? They're trying to get you to lose the ball and go on the attack. And your whole way of playing has to be to mitigate the danger that you have in possession, because of course you're trying to get to their goal. I mean, this is basic stuff. You're trying to get to their goal. They're trying to get to yours. The more you try to get to theirs, the less you have defending your own goal. But United, it's like, I don't even know what to say about it anymore. It gets worse and worse. And it's like they get more and more desperate every game to just go long and pray for something to happen. And then inevitably it comes right back against them.
Well, you're supposed to, when you attack, you're supposed to have a shape that if you turn the ball over, you're protected.
Yeah. Yes.
Now, if you listen to what Slot was saying yesterday, or 2 days ago, saying that we could afford to push these players up because we knew United wing backs would play really high and would leave one-on-one opportunities. And if we turned the ball over, we would have adequate cover, right?
Which they did, yeah.
We still had our back four back there. We had 2 strikers. And the midfield, by the way, midfield 3, and no disrespect because these are good players. Alexis McAllister, Szoboszlai, and Gravenberch. I mean, it looks bad when you're sending pretty much the entire Ajax team, but Kudus and Gravenberch, you know, are handing your arse to you last season and this season. I'm like,
Yeah.
no doubt that if Gravenberch would have been signed by Ten Hag, we'd still be talking about him trying to find his feet in English football and wouldn't be able to. Anyway, I don't want to get.
And that we don't have a real six, because where's the real
Patty.
six in that three? You know, Gravenberch is not a traditional six either.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, yeah, you're supposed to have a shape that prevents this.
Yeah.
And when you're conceding the same ridiculous goals over and over again, that is not an accident. We talked about in the podcast last week, the number of goals United have conceded in the 90th minute and beyond. You know, they can over the last 2 years, you know, is 3 times in the amount that they conceded over the previous 20. That's not an accident, James. Right? I'm also going to be critical of Onana's positioning.
I was going to ask you about that one
I
next.
even think that Onana bears some responsibility for Brighton. I don't know if he communicated to Maguire to clear the ball. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like I said, where was the Onana that was bollocking Maguire in preseason the year before? Right? And I'm looking at Onana and I'm going, the positioning for the goal is poor.
Yep.
Still slightly irritated by that stupid game he played with Holland in the Community Shield. Right? And I don't like how slow and casual he is with the ball at his feet. It gives me a heart attack every time. And plays dangerous balls down the center. He's way too casual, way too lax with the ball at his feet. And like, maybe I'm being unfair to him with that. But looking at those goals, and I'm like, I don't know. I think his positioning is poor, and I think he's had moments where he's been really good, and I praised him during those moments. I didn't want to lean into him too heavy last season when he was making lots of individual mistakes, because I felt like the year before, this was a guy named the best goalkeeper in the Champions League.
Yeah,
this is obviously a very, very good goalkeeper, but what worries me, James, is some of the mistakes that he's making are basic, fundamental goalkeeping, technical flaws, not getting the body behind the ball. But you know, from set pieces, I remember the free kick away to Galatasaray and stuff. These are things that even remember when I think it was his debut, got lobbed by Lance from 45 yards. I'm like, this is a big problem. So when you talk about nervousness at the back and you're defending, okay, it starts there,
for sure.
Where you don't trust your goalkeeper. And then I'm not just blaming him, because it's right throughout the defense. United are nervous in defense. They always have a nerviness when they defend. There's no confidence in how they defend. They don't press the ball. And like, even if you go back and look at that 4-3 game, so many of the goals that Liverpool scored were similar. And those scores in that goal game disallowed, which was pretty much identical to what we saw yesterday or Sunday. Same thing, turning the ball over in the same place, same mistake, everything. And it's a huge problem. And for Ten Hag, what we saw at the weekend is a direct consequence of what he works on in training. I accept you need consistency in the lineup to get chemistry, to get telepathy, to get, you know, a lot of style of play, but that's unacceptable. I'm sorry.
For sure. And it is definitely. And I think the thing that's tough is that when I look at the performance, I can pick out a lot of individual things that have occurred, right? Onana's positioning, especially on the third goal, for sure. Casemiro giving the ball away, Kobbie Mainoo giving the ball away there. Xerxes not finishing those chances. But the part that really worries me is I feel like if none of those things were true, we would still be bad. We still wouldn't have played a good game of football, you know, because all the other fundamental flaws, like let's say Casemiro doesn't give the ball away in that pass, right? It doesn't change the shape of the team in that moment in time being poor. It doesn't change, you know, like what I'm getting at is that those are moments there's individual mistakes, like pass percentage. It's just a measure of how successful you are completing passes. But if you're put in a position where you constantly have to make higher risk passes because you don't have options, because the players aren't close to you, because the gaps are big, you're going to make more missed passes. You're going to have a lower percentage. So it's like, I feel as though, the mistakes, the errors, the things like that are, they're poor, but they're almost predictable. You can predict that mistakes will happen. When you put people in positions where mistakes happen, mistakes happen. When you put people in positions where they're under pressure a lot, these things happen. Xerxes, he gets in the box there and misses those 2 chances, which is totally correct. But those are only 2 touches in the box practically the entire game on goal. So when you're getting chances once every 45 minutes, every 50, 60 minutes, it's impossible to build a consistency of shooting, of scoring, of attacking, and get into any kind of a rhythm. And that's how it is. I mean, we saw that with Garnacho too. He's missed some easy chances this year, including in the first game. There's such a long distance in between attempts on goal, in between attacking flows, that there's just no way. Like, these people need to find a rhythm. They need to find, a flow to get into. Nobody takes 100% of their chances. But I feel like if we don't, we'll never score goals. We have to score 100% of our chances to do well.
The ironic thing is, James, he found a playing style quicker in his first season, right? Now, I understand all these new players and stuff, and that's fine. But what we saw on Sunday looked like a team that had never played together in its life. And we've said this so many times about United teams over the years. And I think one of the things that he's in a position that reminds me of where Mourinho was in, where Solskjaer was in. And both of them had decent periods, but the players look like they don't believe him.
Yeah.
The players look like they're giving up. And once you lose people's confidence and trust, it's really difficult to get it back. A player can get it because a player just has to worry about themselves in their own form. But you're a leader. And undoubtedly, Ten Hag will be trying to implement certain things that, methods and concepts and tactics and instructions that are very different from what these players have done before. When you are doing stuff like that, you have to do it from a position of strength. You have to do it players will do it as long as you're winning. When you're not winning, they're going to undermine you. And in his slight defense, James, one thing, and we've talked about this before, he said something that really I felt, again, you never know if this is, if it's out of context because, his English isn't always perfect, but about the fact that United had asked him to bring standards. Club discipline must be a club issue. Otherwise, it's essentially a step parent coming into a relationship and trying to implement rules and disciplines on kids that have never had them. Good luck. You're just going to be hated, especially if the other parent doesn't enforce them. And then they have an outlet where they can go around you under manual authority, and then you can never lead, from that position. It is simply impossible. You will always have chaos. You will always have this. Just will always look like this. So, when Ten Hag's being blamed for Jadon Sancho, when Ten Hag's being blamed for Cristiano Ronaldo, when he's being blamed for all these, Mason Green, these are club decisions. These should have nothing to do with him. He shouldn't even be involved in whatever he thinks. It shouldn't be left. Oh, there was a Ten Hag decision to bring Mason Greenwood back. No, it's a club decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Don't even mention Ten Hag. It was Ten Hag's decision to suspend Jadon Sancho. No, it was nothing to do with Ten Hag. The disciplinary issues that Jadon Sancho broke were not Ten Hag's rules. They were the club rules.
Right.
Okay. Otherwise, you get blamed for trying to bring rules that the club don't want to uphold. This is impossible. And the thing is, it's like this is when you're in a 2-3 year relationship with someone, and then all of a sudden, you've got all different surroundings. And you think, well, our relationship just started 3 months ago. No, it's very difficult psychologically to undo what happened the first 2 years with people you work with, regardless of the
Yep.
causal elements of it. The core causal elements, whether it was the club, whether it was the seal, all of that, doesn't matter. If the people you're leading don't trust you and don't believe you, forget it. You're done
Yeah.
already.
For sure. And a part of the problem there is it's very easy to take that kind of statement and say, well, the players just have to get behind it 100% no matter what.
That's not how human
It
brains work.
never, ever happens. Any job you've ever been in, ever worked in, if you've had a boss and they come in and they start implementing things and it doesn't work, you cannot. You just can't. It's just it is impossible because there's the reward punishment aspect of just mental psychology, and when you do things and you get punished for them rather than rewarded, you cannot then believe in those further. And that is how people will feel if they do something and it doesn't work and it doesn't succeed. They cannot continue to keep beating their heads in trying to do that with all the encouragement that they have now. That and so it's just a natural thing. And I think that people get too far into, when you talk about losing the dressing room, these types of statements, people usually think it is something like, this is sort of odd personal vendettas and things. But for the most part, it's not that. It's when the ideas stop to take hold with anybody and they really, really lose. And people just have no more confidence in their ability to follow these things anymore. And it's very hard to come back from that for managers. It's really, really, really hard. And I think that is, to some degree, Ten Hag's biggest problem right now. He has a lot of players that he's worked with, a lot of people that he's worked with, and they're still not coming through. And even if he has worked with the players before, even if he has a prior relationship with them, it may help, but it's not going to save that issue from occurring with them. I mean, I'd even say, just off the top of my head here, like Lisandro Martinez, for example, I think has been pretty poor the first 3 games. Mm-hmm. And that may be getting up to speed, being out for a long time, all of that. But he's been pretty poor the first 3 games. And a lot of that I still put down to the issues with the setup. He seems out of sorts. And I didn't see that from him before. He doesn't seem like he knows where to be at all times. He's stepping up when usually I wouldn't expect him to step up. He's dropping down when I usually would expect him to step up. The passes, the angles he's looking for are not there. There's really an issue when we're seeing players like that are struggling, that I would have hoped would be, kind of the maybe helping in this season so far to keep things on task, who really understand what he wants. But it's a problem. And I know it gets boring to kind of just go on and on about the Ten Hag aspect of it, because it's not all that for sure, but it's hard to know how you fix it. I guess that's the concern. How does this get fixed now?
If you look at United's history, and I've said this before, in their 141-year history, they've really only had 2 very, very successful managers. Yeah. So first of all, the Manchester United job is really hard. And any job that requires you to get 22 human beings with complete alignment on a collective goal is really difficult. Anyone that's been married will know it's hard to get 2 people that exchange love vows or to remain aligned on a collective goal, because human beings are affected by different things. They're emotional, we're selfish, we're solipsistic, we're self-indulgent. But to get them to do things they don't want to do, or things that they understand is necessary, you can't do it by compulsion, James. Yep. You can't. Think about our own jobs. We've all done jobs we hate. Yep. For someone we don't like. And the threat of retribution or compulsion never leads you to do great things in your job. It just leads you to do enough not to get your balls chewed off and not to get fired. But the people that are doing greatness, they're nourished by micro results, not a transaction, not a check, not a paycheck, because after like 2 months, that money makes no material difference to their life, their quality of life. They can't buy another Ferrari. It makes them happy. They can't buy another house, another holiday. It's just it really makes no difference. So you have to be nourished by the achievements in your job, but you have to believe that you can accomplish them first.
Yep.
So That's the first job you have to do as a football manager, is to get the collective buy-in of the group that what we're doing will lead to results. If you can't do that, everything else is irrelevant. Everything else is irrelevant. Okay.
Yeah.
You have no chance whatsoever. Now, you need support from the club. You need proper incentives. You need proper consequence structure from the club for not achieving that success. And they're in the transition of trying to bring that culture in. Very difficult. But for Ten Hag, he might go somewhere else and be extremely successful. And when we talk about playing styles, you look at Ajax. Ajax have a consistent playing style from under 6 all the way up.
Mm-hmm.
So, you can, if player gets injured, you can bring one out of the under 18s and they'll know more or less. May not be able to play it to the same degree, but they'll know stylistically how to replicate the style that they're being asked to play. United have never done that. I mean, even when Guardiola comes into City, it takes hundreds of millions and really precise alterations for players to be able to do that, because it's not just about technical ability, it's about fitness, James.
Yep.
To play that way, you have to be exceptionally fit. You have to get major consistency in the lineup. That means you must have a medical department, therapist department that is cutting edge. He lost Malacia and lost Martinez due to grotesque incompetence, right?
Yeah.
And massive understaffing issues. And of course, needed repeated injuries. So I'm not surprised he can't implement a consistent playing style. No manager really has for a sustained period of time. But that being said, this is Manchester United. What he did, just not just the result, but some of the comments before and after. I know everyone has a different threshold, and I go through different opinions on this, but I find it harder and harder to defend this. I can't take another season of this.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I was going to ask, is that I think, I guess for all of ours in terms of opinion and what we think is, how long does it go on? How long do we get? Because Ten Hag didn't get a new contract, right? So if effectively it costs, the costs aren't an issue. United have put themselves in a very good financial position by the end of the summer. Just let's put that in perspective for a minute as being true too, which wasn't the case before. With the business that they did, with the sales that they did, with everything that's happened, they're in a different financial situation than they were before, which is much more positive overall for the club. And I think that the question is how long, one, and two, how long does he get to fix it this season? Does he get the whole year? Does he get 6 months? Does he get 3 months? Is it like game by game already because of the way that things are going? How long is it? It's I don't really know the answer to that question. I don't know what my opinion on it would be. That things have to change, I would say, by the next international break, which is about 5 or 6 weeks away. Once again, maybe it's in the mid-October, I think is when it is, because you have a number of games in here over the next, 4 Premier League games. Some are winnable, some are tough again, and I think there'll be a real measure of where United are at. But I don't think it's a team in a shape where if it continues to go poorly, there's any evidence that it will turn around for the rest of the season in that instance. That if it's bad for the next month, that it'll be just somehow turn around. And so something will have to be changed. I don't know. That might be too soon for them. They might look at it and say, no, we're gonna ride it out as long as we're in Europe and Europa, and we're in the league. We're gonna keep going until January and beyond, and we'll make a decision again at the start of next year. The issue is last season, the part where that doesn't really work is last season we spent nearly the entire final 6 months of the year discussing Ten Hag's.
Can I interrupt you? Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Twist my nuts. I'm reading here from the Turkish media that Casemiro
I saw
is being pursued by Qatar. Do not twist my nuts. What do you think? But that would be a bit of a surprise, given that United had short on numbers there, and not a surprise in terms of the outcome. I'm sure you would like to shift the wages. It'd be interesting to see what Ten Hag would say about this, because sorry to interrupt you, mate, distraction.
No, we'll go back to it.
Because two things with Casemiro that I don't understand with Ten Hag. Last season, he brings him off at halftime. I can't remember what game it was. It might have been Brentford, actually. And he says, we need to get more football into the team, which Casemiro was extremely unhappy about that comment. Now, Ten Hag's been asked multiple times, has Casemiro lost his legs? And he says, refutes that. Then he says, that's because Liverpool needed to get legs in midfield. Like, mate, what are you doing? Like, this is, I mean, and then there was another interview where he says things, cliched about what you need to do to improve on. One of the things he says is mentality, it's technique, execution, everything. He's like, the interview goes, so what do you mean by mentality? He goes, I didn't say mentality. He goes, you just literally just did. You did it. He goes, no, I didn't. He goes, you did. He goes, no, you said that. No, you said this. And obviously we've seen what Casemiro's wife uploaded. And then the comments about needing months to get a Ugarte in, surely, one, why does he need months, which I don't believe. I think, did he mean months to integrate him consistently in the team? I don't know. He doesn't have it. But how can you realistically rely on Casemiro now when there's clearly a personal issue? Andy Mitten reporting about Casemiro not being happy with tactics, which I think was I think wasn't a massive stretch. I think you could see that last season. I felt for him about being put in the centre back, and could United really afford to be without him and not have a replacement? Because one thing that I felt with the Jadon Sancho thing was that Ten Hag wanted a replacement.
Yeah, it is tricky because I've been thinking about it as well since it kind of just came out to talk about that Casemiro leaving. Is that if he goes, one positive is, again, Manuel Ugarte. This is where it sort of doesn't make sense. Manuel Ugarte is an incredibly fit player. He hasn't missed a game in injury since he was like 19 years old. He's kind of like Bruno in that respect. He doesn't get injured, doesn't get hurt. So he's going to play a lot. So in some respects, you could say you could go with a shorter team, a smaller team, a thinner squad in there. And maybe, you save the money, you deal with the situation. And in January, you look to options to bring somebody in. I'm not sure that you can afford to do that, though, frankly. And to be quite honest, I don't think it changes that much, with Casemiro, because
I was just about to ask you a follow-up question. Does it mean anything if he stays?
No, because here's the thing, right? A lot of people talked about, and Andy Mitten said this on the thing too, that against Fulham, it was his best game in a while. He played really well. I rewatched. I went through the difficulty because it's paining me to actually rewatch some of these games, to rewatch some of these games and see why United were better against Fulham and Casemiro was better against Fulham than against Brighton and against Liverpool. And I hate rewatching games. I don't like doing it, and I did not rewatch the entire thing. But I hated doing it. But I wanted to see something if I suspected, and I'm really quite certain of this point. Against Fulham, the gaps between him and the other players are practically non-existent. They're very small. They're tiny. The center backs are in the opposition half the whole game practically when we're in possession. Everybody's up on the ball. He's passing it a little bit sideways, a little bit backwards, a little bit sideways. There's no long balls over the top. He's winning the ball in practically the opposition's final third and making a pass to Bruno, 10 yards, right in on goal. Not from his own half, not from his own goalkeeper box, on the other side of the pitch entirely. And when he played for Real Madrid, there were some interesting comments about this. Even when he played for Real Madrid with Kroos and Modric, they even talked about how they changed his responsibilities specifically because he's really energetic, really good out of possession. And of course, you had players like Kroos and Modric to build the play up from deeper. And so they would switch it, right? And so in possession, they would be deeper than him. And he'd be getting around and cleaning up and doing all of that. And then, switching the other way around. And we're doing quite the opposite. And the issue is, if he stays, it doesn't matter. There's no solution to this problem that is a personnel issue. That's where I'm at on it. That's what sort of doesn't matter to me. You can't put Ugarte in that same spot against Liverpool and he's going to complete that pass. He's not gonna. The same outcome is going to happen.
Here's the thing, James. When Casemiro played for Real Madrid, you're talking about a team that in 98% of the games are going to dominate possession.
For sure. Yeah.
They're not going to be subjected to 100 mile-an-hour counterattacks in the league.
Yeah.
Doesn't play that way.
Yeah.
So, the intensity, the pace is different. You have world-class players in every position. So if you do make a mistake, if Casemiro makes those 2 mistakes for Real Madrid, they almost certainly don't lead the goals, because there's this, even where he made the mistakes, United still should have had more of a line and cover to protect. I mean, if you look at the mistake he makes with the pass to Gravenberch, Gravenberch picks that ball up.
Yeah,
now, he's on the halfway line.
Yeah, there's plenty of time to stop that attack.
United should have had pressure on that ball long before that. Right?
Yeah.
It shouldn't. But if you look at the goal that was disallowed, same thing. Gravenberch picks the ball up, runs right through the middle. No one near, ball back post, and Trent Alexander-Arnold scored. Warren was right there.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
I mean, so many times the ball gets picked up in midfield, no pressure on the ball.
Yeah.
But in his defense, I thought he played well against City in the Community Shield. Right?
Yeah.
I thought he had a decent preseason. There were some games I thought he played well. He played well against Betis, San Diego. And I thought he'd done well against Fulham.
Yeah.
So I don't think he was terrible against Brighton. But I think part of the problem for him is that you don't go to the Premier League at 30 when you're that type of player, because it's a much faster pace. And it's not surprising me we've done well in the Champions League last season, because it's a different pace. So he's a very good player in the right league, in the right team. But this is not the right league or the right team. The thing is, Ugarte, one of the reasons why Luis Enrique was okay with letting him go is because they didn't feel he was great in possession. They thought he was good at other things, but they felt that his distribution wasn't 100% and that they didn't feel he was great in possession. So this is also a concern, because if you look at the way United play out from the back, they play that direct ball into the midfielder. That midfielder, and I know Kobbie Mainoo helps, but Kobbie pushes up, has to be technical, or you're going to get caught in the ball. Okay? Because a lot of it to your back to the play. Plus, you're the first transition to build up. And Casemiro loses a ball in possession yesterday because of the balls are being asked to play. This is what goes back to what I'm saying, that whatever Ten Hag's trying to do, at that first season, I think he massively overperformed. Don't accept it. But whatever he's trying to do, James, he can't find a practical solution to the players that he has, and that has a tactical lineup and execution that prevents what happened on Sunday. The other thing that annoyed me was he made no changes to how United played. I'm a screwed. I don't know when. I was watching this after 10 minutes. I turned it to my son and said, look, Liverpool setting traps for United. They're making sure they play that ball into midfield where their midfielders are isolated. They know exactly where the second ball goes. The second ball goes wide. Because you have no central striker. So they know that when that ball comes into Casemiro, comes into Mainoo, where it's going down the wings. Okay? They tucked their wingers in on top of Rashford and Garnacho. Didn't give him an outlet ball. Xerxes drops deep, way deep. So your centre-backs don't have to worry about him, right? And the Casemiro or Mainoo isn't passing the ball into Xerxes. And Fernandez also, where he wants to receive the ball. Eventually he gets frustrated and drops deep, right? Because he wants to dictate the play. He wants to get United going, and I understand why he does it. And then you catch him in positions where he is a bit of a liability, because you don't want Bruno Fernandes on the edge of your own box, right?
Correct.
And so, and when I look at this, Mike, these are solutions. These are things Ten Hag should have solutions for. This is why
Yep.
you're paid this, and when he is speaking, like United are lucky to have him. Maybe I'm interpreting that wrong, but it's like, how dare you judge me on results? How dare you? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know we spent over 600 million. It's not all his fault. And I know that I've been able to sign 11 players, a lot of Ajax players, which I understand. Managers want players in the dressing room, that players who trust them, and the vice versa. But Xavi came in at Barcelona. Now, Barcelona, total mess.
Yeah.
Financially can't register players. He wins in the league.
Yep.
Right? And he was at Barcelona a shorter time than what Ten Hag was at United. Xavi had to play 16-year-olds, had to play 17-year-olds, play 18-year-olds. Mark Guehi, centre back, not Mark Guehi, Parker Barsi, 17,
Yep.
Lamine Yamal, 17, Pedri, Xavi, kids.
Yeah.
Rafinha, next Leeds winger, better than Anthony. At half the price, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, like, Eric, that's your issue.
And we turned him down too.
Well, you're not scoring goals. You have your £85 million winger on the bench, mate.
Yeah, I didn't see the pitch again. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own threshold, and people are going to feel different about this. But I still support him. I don't still support him. And there was a lot of times last season where I felt sorry for him in a way, and I can rate off a lot of issues that affect how United play and how they don't have a playing style. But it comes back to that question. If United had no manager right now and Ten Hag was on the market, would you hire Eric Ten Hag to be the Manchester United manager?
Right. Exactly. And I don't think so. Not on the evidence you have from the last couple of years now at this point in time. That would be the issue. And so,
by the way, how long? To me, you never have an answer.
Yeah,
right?
That was my question. Yeah.
Because the thing is like, I would be more surprised now if it did work out than it didn't. But sorry, go ahead.
Well, and when it's because last year I was saying we spent the entire last 6 months of the season talking about Ten Hag's future, and there was no way that was helpful. And it's game 3, and we're already doing it everywhere. And there's no way that it's helpful. I get that, and I don't necessarily even want to contribute to it as much as we have to kind of do so in the commentary, but it's not like it's going to go away if we stop talking about it. The doubts are there. You're getting boos in the stadium for your choices 3 games into the season is not going to work. It has to work quickly, or it's just going to get worse, and then it becomes a snowball and gets completely out of control. My concerns are I don't see why it would get better for the same reason, like all the things you described tactically, the issues, all of that, like you say with Ugarte, he's not going to fix that. And there was a disagreement to some degree between him and the hierarchy on Ugarte in the first place. Mm-hmm. So they clearly have a slightly different perspective on what we should be doing. Because Ugarte doesn't go into that. That was my point on Casemiro, whether he stays or goes, it doesn't matter to me. Because Ugarte will go in and he will fix a lot defensively with his pace, with his speed, with his energy, with all of that. He's not fixing that possession problem that we see week in and week out. He's worse at those progressive passes than Casemiro is. He plays a different way to Casemiro on the ball. He's going to pass it backwards, which is probably better for us.
Well, let me
ask you a question. He's going to play it safer, and he's going to go backwards. So clearly, there's a different idea here about why he was signed than the way we're playing now. And I just wonder if that's a part of the whole commentary about it. About him not getting in the team right away. Like it bothered me. That comment really bothered me.
The contrast between how McTominay was received at Napoli versus Ugarte, I think. Imagine you're Ugarte hearing that comment. That would infuriate me.
Yeah.
I'd be straight in going, what are you talking about, Monts? I mean, because it just looks like he's an unwanted stepchild.
Mm-hmm.
I understand McTominay. He wanted McTominay to stay. I get it.
Yeah.
Right. But these practical decisions have to be made in football all the time. You still have financial responsibilities they need to adhere to. And hey, Eric, considering some of the players in United's team right now, that some of them you brought at massive fees, maybe you should be a bit more sympathetic to this, but okay, fine. I still don't think you come out and say stuff like that. I think that was wrong. But let me ask you this, okay? Gary Neville said something about a week ago, which took a bit of criticism for, but I think he was right when he said you need to have a better midfield than Liverpool. Will you have Ugarte, Kabi, Mainu, and Fernandes? Would you swap any of those three for Szoboszlai, McAllister, or Gravenberch?
Maybe McAllister. I think he's been exceptional
Who?
on his day for
Who
Bruno
would you swap?
because Bruno can be erratic. I think Bruno is a better player.
Because
I
you
understand.
shape.
I don't disagree with you. That would be the only one I could even make an argument for is McAllister because he's been really, really good for Liverpool and very consistent.
How do you think McAllister would play for United in this Ten Hag team?
He wouldn't play well because he doesn't like Bruno suits how we play better. And so in that case, I wouldn't. I'm saying, like if you brought McAllister in, you have to change the way you play. And it might be worth it. I'm just saying you would have to for sure. And so it would be playing different. But I would agree on that sense. Ugarte, Kabi Mainu, and Bruno Fernandes should be one of the best midfields in the Premier League. It should control games. It should dominate games because they have so many top tier characteristics. Ugarte is one of the best ball winners in all of football. Near Conte levels, nobody has done the numbers he has. Aside from him, Bruno Fernandes, we know what his output can be, and Kabi Mainu, we know what he can bring to the table. It should be one of the best midfields in football. They should be able to control the game entirely, and that should be the expectation that we should have for them. So I would agree with Gary Neville in that respect, frankly.
The other thing is, James, you noticed this a bit on Sunday too when United were attacking. There was a moment when Bruno Fernandes had the ball. He makes the wrong pass selection in the final third, and then he's illustrating the fact that United's runs are too narrow. They're too similar. They're occupying the same space. And again, I'm looking at this going, how do we not know this going into our third season?
Right.
Why are players still not sure where they need to be? Because the defense doesn't occupy the right positions. If you're coaching a back four, okay, to me, the mistakes that United made against Brighton, which, people were accusing me of being really negative last week. Oh, we played well not there.
I was pretty negative about it too.
But what concerned me, James, was the reason why United were losing games were fundamental. It wasn't something. It wasn't that something a deflection bounced off somebody's arse, hit the post keeper's head, and then okay, these are just freak. What happened to Brighton wasn't a freak accident.
Yeah,
that was indicative of issues that stem from the training ground.
Yeah,
organizational stuff. If I'm coaching kids, you teach them how to hold shape. Okay, especially you need to do a lot of zonal marking. Okay. So the back four know how to mark zones. They know what position to be in. I understand it came from a corner, but even still, these are basics. Okay, because by the time the ball comes back in from the corner against Brighton, it's not a second phase of play. Players should know where to be. And Casemiro can run out and all that. No, Lisandro Martinez at the back post should have been organized on the left-hand side of the defense and made sure he had a left back on the other side of him. Ball comes across, was it Diaz with the first one at the back post? Was it I can't even where there's nobody marking again.
Yeah.
Correct. And that's where Delict and Mazarui have got to organize that. They're on the right hand side of the defense. And I'm just looking at that and going, these are basic organizational things that come off a training ground about how to communicate. These are things these players know how to do, but they're not doing properly. They're most basic elementary mistakes. And the other thing is, when you have Ten Hag saying that the reason why United lost was individual errors, and then you have Bruno Fernandes coming out saying, no, don't blame individuals, which I agree with Bruno Fernandes, by the way.
Me too.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you have Arne Slot going on TV and within 2 minutes completely annihilating, any illusion that this was down to individual errors rather than forced individual errors.
Correct. Forced is the key.
Because I teach this with kids how to force errors in position. If you see a pattern of play, okay, they keep playing it out to the right centre back, tell your striker, set off.
Cut it off,
Let him get the ball and then force the error. Okay, close off the passing lanes and he'll turn the ball over. Or she, whatever. This is basic. right?
Yeah.
So
It's all
you say
sports is
individual
like
error.
that.
Yeah,
Every
of
single
course.
sport is like that. You
Of
force
course.
the
It's
errors. Yeah.
easy. You force the
Yeah.
error in key areas of the field
Yep.
where you can really hurt teams.
Yep.
And you teach kids, do not turn the ball over in the middle of the field. And I
Yep.
get that it's hard to get players up to that level. I mean, if you look at City, Matthias Nunes in there, they've had, Calvin Phillips in there. It doesn't work. There's a reason why De Bruyne is still in there. There's a reason why they brought Gundogan back. It's hard to get
Yep.
quality players in that position. But still, that Ten Hag has been given a midfield that no United manager's been given. Even Ferguson wasn't given a midfield of that caliber.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at this and I'm going, you have enough on that field. Last season, the injuries, I accepted, but you have enough on that field where United fans have every right to expect much better. And I'm sick and tired of Liverpool and City having their easiest games at Old Trafford.
For sure. Agreed. It's got to end. It's got to change, and it's got to change fast. There's no doubt about it.
Lastly on this, James, the other thing that concerns me is United still don't look like a team that can score goals. This ultimately is one of the biggest issues. The chances they created, if they took a decent percentage of them, we'd be talking about completely different outcomes. Goals completely changed games. We saw it with Liverpool last season. We saw it with City. City can be really poor or average, have 3 chances, and it looks like they dominated.
Mm-hmm.
They have quality up front. Liverpool have quality up front. United have quality too. Obviously, you have an issue with Marcus Rashford. You either, for me, and I know people criticize him, but he's the only player in that front line that's capable of getting 30 goals a season if you get him in the right headspace.
And that's why he's still starting.
That's why he's there.
Yeah.
Right? Because the alternatives are, they're not going to get it. Ahmad came on, played really well, thought, and I don't know what he's going to do in the next game. But he's got 2 weeks on the training pitch. And he has a decent run of fixtures that he should expect to win. And it may feel better a month from now. But again, the test will come when they play decent teams and how they play against them. And this has to be the last time a result like this ever happens.
Agreed. We can't have these games. You can lose a close one. You can lose a tight one where you back and forth. I mean, you can do those. It can happen. There are teams that are better, that are more established. But we cannot be, as you said, the easiest game. When Mo Salah is coming after the game and saying he was surprised at how easy it was, and it's painful. It's painful. That can't happen anymore. And he's not wrong either. It was easy for them.
United are turning into the Espanyol of Barcelona, the team that just gets battered all the time, and every once in a while they turn up a decent result.
Yep.
But it's never away.
Yep.
Even at Wembley, it's a neutral venue. Gavardio makes a mistake and they capitalize.
Yep.
But these are exceptions to the rule. I'm just sick and tired of it.
Anyhow,
anything else you want to talk about here, mate, before we run?
That should be it. Yeah, definitely. I think that about covers it.
By the way, I said twist my nuts so I don't get sued for copyright. Anyway, if you were a transfer guru, what would your slogan be?
My slogan? Oh, man.
You need to think about that for next week.
I know. I've been having to think about that for a long time. The things I've come up with are not podcast appropriate, I think, at the time.
Yeah, Matt. Not surprisingly. We shall leave it there, my friend. All right. Thanks to all of you for downloading the podcast as always. Hopefully this wasn't too negative. We tried to have a lot more.
Hopefully it's cathartic. Sometimes it can be negative, but hopefully I thought it was cathartic for me. I hope it was for you. And I hope if you're listening, maybe instead of infuriating you more, it gives you an outlet to hear your frustrations verbalized as well, because I understand that too.
Mate, ultimately, I don't care who manages United. I don't care if it's Woody Allen, just as long as United
just
win.
Want to be good.
Football, right? I don't care. I just want them to win games of football and play well.
Exactly.
I hope it's not Gareth Southgate because I don't think he has a personality. But if they ever playing exceptional football every week, I wouldn't care who it was. I just want them to win and play decent football, and that's pretty much it. But all right, we'll leave it there, matey. I will talk to you later. Thanks to all of you for downloading the podcast as always, for tuning in, and we'll be back again next week, living inspired.
Sounds
Take it easy,
good.
Ned.
See you later,
Bye.
bye.